Hi, my name is Chatterjee and I'm here with you today at the Gallery 47A for an exhibition curated by Andre Baptista and C&L Design called This Ground Plus, Khotachi Wadi in Design Context. And the challenge that we gave ourselves for this exhibition was to, in a sense, think about the design histories of Bombay and in particular Girgaon and Khotachi Wadi, using individual houses and individual family histories as pointers into particular kinds of design conversations. Khotachi Wadi has a very particular history, and that is something that we used as a basis upon which to present the objects in the exhibition. Andre Baptista, as a local resident, was able to have extraordinary access into homes and to be able to tease out histories, oral histories of specific families in order to present then this extraordinary exhibition. So the room we're in first is what we're calling the Cristo House room. The owners of the gallery in which we are right now are the Cristos, who've been here since at least the 1850s, and in fact we have the original plan from that period in the exhibition. So we thought this would be a nice way of entering into the space. And we also have a map made by the students of Crivia, which gives one a sense of the layout of the area, and this very nice animation which charts the changing demographic of the density of building in the area over the last 220 years. Moving into the next room, first, I'd like to show you these reproduction photographs sourced from the Baudaji Lad Museum, which show different communities of this area, photographed during the 19th century as a way of introducing us then to communities. And secondly, Dina Building, which is a space in Girgaon in which the family who began the famous Bharat Flooring and Tiles Company lived in the early part of the 20th century. And they were kind enough to loan us both furniture pieces from the house and also reproductions of their iconic tiles. And this installation then sets us up for a conversation around Girgaon. Girgaon is the broader area in which Khotachi Wadi is located. We have archival material from individual families, as well as here a khadi bundle by the artist Ashish Avikuntak. We have photography presented by Bombay Wala. The photography itself is by Philippe Callier and shows photographs from famous physical culture home, a space in which during the independence movement members were deployed as security detail for freedom fighters. So this whole section, in a sense, looks at nationalism and the way that it was positioned within the period of independence. And then we have a video which charts over a 5-minute period some of the flavour of Girgaon itself. Having then set up an introduction to the broader area, the rest of the exhibition then goes into much more detail about individual homes in Khotachi Wadi. So here we are in the Valika house, one of whose members worked in the early 20th century on civic development. And the rest of the room then also looks at civic development in the city and in Khotachi Wadi. Here we have works by Gentricity, the coming together of visual artists and architects looking at the urban density of Khotachi Wadi and Girgaon around 15 years ago now. And these works then set up this conversation around the way that the city has changed dramatically over the last 100 years. Next, I'm going to take you to 28 Fernandez House. Sadly, over the last 10 years, many of the original bungalows of the area have been destroyed and broken down by developers building new blocks, high-rises, and the latest victim of this is 28 Fernandez House. This set up then a question for us in a curatorial sense is what happens in the absence of a space. We get into the notion of the speculative. In other words, we have to start replacing the absent space with objects of our imagination. And then from that flight of fancy, we included works by Sahej Rahal, and then the artworks presented in Robert Stevens' wonderful new publication, Bombay Imagined. Each of these artworks is a representation of an unrealized project for Bombay made over the last 150 years. So here, for example, is Bombay 1971, visualization of a letter written by an anonymous writer to the Times of India in 1921, speculating on what Bombay would look like in 50 years' time. The next section in the exhibition is 38 Ferreira House, inhabited by Bruno Ferreira, member of the Royal Photographic Society in London, a keen photographer of the 1940s and 50s, and someone who documented Khotachi Wadi in wonderful, luminous detail. And we are lucky enough to have images, original prints, vintage prints by him in the exhibition. And what we have done is then we have created a conversation between Bruno Ferreira and then Keenan Pereira, a contemporary photographer and another local resident of Khotachi Wadi, whose photographs then work very beautifully with Bruno's themselves. Alongside Bruno Ferreira and Keenan Pereira, we also have the photographs of Philippe Callier, who we talked about before, presented by Bombay Wala, but this time we have photographs of the Vanguard Studios, and this is a photographic studio which was active especially in the early part of the 20th century and could well have been patronized by someone like Bruno Ferreira. The next house is 27AA, the Edvanka House, and one of the members of this family trained at the Chatterjee School of Arts, and indeed here is a silver pot with chasing by that member of the family. This gave us the opportunity to think about art schools and the industrial arts at the outset of the 20th century. And so we have the lithographic stones of the Ravivarma press, which of course was first situated very close to Khotachi Wadi and who employed many members of the Chatterjee School of Arts in its early years. And then above we have these extraordinary stained glass windows which originate from the government school in Madras from a similar kind of period from when the stones were made in the early 20th century. I'm now going to take you to the area we call the cafe in the gallery and show you the house of the Baptista family. And so in keeping with the idea of a cafe, we have then a conversation around food histories. One of the members of the Baptista household was a keen cook, and in fact we are lucky enough to have her recipe for the famous East Indian recipe of bottle masala, oftentimes a great secret amongst families in the area. Alongside them we have utensils and family photographs, and we've paired this with the design objects of Ashwin Malia, who we asked to respond to Khotachi Wadi and Girgaon through a series of design interventions. And these are the forms that he made after spending a couple of months walking through the lanes of Khotachi Wadi and Girgaon, and being particularly impressed by the manner in which local residents collected obsessively items and then cherished them and stored them in different ways. And in a sense, it brought to mind the heritage of the Wunderkammer, or the Cabinet of Curiosities, which is something which goes back to the beginning of museums and collecting in Europe. And so in fact, this cabinet is his homage not only to Khotachi Wadi, but then also to the idea of the Wunderkammer. So there's just one more space to have a quick look at, which is the finale of the exhibition. We, of course, were needed to have the help of many people in pulling an exhibition like this together, and Andre, having such wonderful access to the community, was able to have many of the local families help us, as well as then a lot of organizations came in to help lend works for the exhibition. Of course, an exhibition like this is incomplete without talking about James Ferreira, a fashion designer, but also one of, or probably the most important single person who has regenerated this area over the last 20-25 years, and who really is a bastion of this area. And so we're very lucky to have family photographs from his collection included in the exhibition. And very lastly, we have a video work which is accompanied by sound, which looks at the locality of Khotachi Wadi. So I think with that, I'd like to say thank you for joining me on this walkthrough, and hope to see you very soon for further walkthroughs. Thank you.